take a minute. I need to watch back like the beginning of my like I've never really watched it back, but I need to watch one just to see how long it takes for it to actually kick on, so I know when when I need to start talking. Because I know the one time people came in when I was talking about like my glasses, like my nose piece. I mentioned this on the Polyglot files when my nose piece and my glasses broke off. And of course, with being quarantined and stuff, I can't really do anything. So that's why I keep touching my face, because I can't do anything. But it looks like we are live. We are back. It's been a couple days. I do have. I mentioned in the last podcast that I did that I was going to have my buddy Kyle in here, and just a miscommunication on my part. I missed that, but we are still going to do that. So that is coming soon. It'll probably be a multi-part series with Kyle, because since we know each other pretty well, and it'll probably be a specific Esperanto episode, and then well, maybe not. I don't know. But me and Kyle will probably go for a long time because we know each other personally. But today, I say this every episode, but it's very genuine, and I hope that you guys understand that. I'm excited to speak with Keith, whom I met via, I think, Twitter. I think I met you through Twitter, as I do a lot of language learning folks, and you intrigued me, and I've enjoyed following some of your stuff and things like that. But I will let you, if you want to, you can introduce yourself and kind of what you do, and then we can just jump into some languages.
Sure. My name is Keith. First of all, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to be here. My name's Keith. Right now, I'm currently a math teacher. Well, let me clarify. I'm a student teacher.
Okay.
And when this whole thing kicked off, of course, with the coronavirus and everything, the quarantine, I was in the middle of finishing up my credential to become, hopefully, a secondary math teacher. So that means I would be able to teach middle school and up. So I'm working on that, but I'm a huge language person. Been studying languages since high school, which is a long time for me now. But yeah, I've definitely been studying for a while. So my primary language is Spanish. That's probably the language that I know best and that I've taken the furthest. I have a minor in Japanese from college.
Oh, okay.
And I'd probably say my third best language is Chinese, Mandarin Chinese.
Okay. Nice. What how long, out of curiosity, you don't have to answer this, I guess, but how long, out of curiosity, how long have you been out of high school? I'm wondering if it's similar to, like, close to how long I have been.
Almost 20 years.
Okay, yeah. I graduated in 2005.
Yeah. Okay, so we're about there. We're about there.
That's
I graduated
actually
in 03.
That's actually funny that you said that. I mean, like, it's not anything I've actively thought about, but you know how, I mean, you have a general perception of people, and I never, you look a lot younger. Not that you're old, but, like, you look, like, I would have pictured you, like, mid-20s or something.
Thank you.
So,
I get that sometimes from some of my students. They tried to guess my age one time a couple of months ago, and they were like, "You look somewhere between 24 and 36." I'm like, "That's a pretty big range."
yeah.
I'm happy I can still pass for that.
That's cool, man. So I'm posting this on Instagram. That's why I'm looking down, and I'm having, like, I don't know what my problem is. I've been having issues typing lately. Like, everything I type is spelled incorrectly, and so I'm trying to get that way, just get as many people as possible seeing this. Yeah, that's cool. So you started in high school, and you said, I'm assuming you started with Spanish?
No, I didn't actually, and which is funny because I was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. So you would think, Spanish,
right?
But actually, I don't even remember why I ended up taking French in high school, but French was my first language.
Whoa, fair enough.
2 years of French. I don't remember hardly a lick of it at all, but I took French, and then I guess this is when I got to college. I went to a military school, United States Air Force Academy.
Okay.
So when I get to the academy, they had us take a language placement test, and I took the test, and I was all excited because I'd gotten pretty good at French, and so I took it, and I get my schedule first day of freshman year. It's Japanese. and I'm like, there must be some mistake. What's going on here? And I go to my counselor, and they were basically like, yeah, we thought you could take what the military calls a strategic language, which is just a more difficult language for a native speaker of English. So
Yeah.
found out later that I did do pretty well on the test to skip the beginner classes of French, which it was kind of a bummer because the first few courses in Japanese were rough and they were hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. So, because I have one of my friends joined the Air Force and went into like to be an interpreter, and he took
Nice. Yeah.
Mandarin Chinese.
Nice.
He spent, I mean, he said, I mean, it was literally 8-9 hours a day in a book or talking to a teacher, and
Yeah.
I mean, he's fluent in Chinese. That's interesting. You're the second person that I've now talked to that has done that. That's really really cool.
Yeah, the military has a pretty in-depth program at the Defense Language Institute. It's actually not far from here in Monterey, California, and they'll send linguists or interpreters and people like that to get training down there. And I've heard accounts from there. The training is pretty intense, and that sounds about right. What your friend said.
Yeah, that's well, man. What like when you first started, what got you into wanting to learn?
So honestly, like if I go really far back when I was really young, I was really into geography. Like for some reason,
Mhm.
I loved flags, like
Yeah,
country flags, state capitals, country capitals. Like I knew like every country's capital, like back when I was a kid, at least,
yeah,
like when I was in third or fourth grade. So I was big geography nerd. So that got me like into already. I was already thinking kind of globally, and I wasn't thinking languages at the time, but
sure.
um, as I got older and saw that this was something that okay I could do, and I remember you mentioned on I listened to one of your previous podcasts, and you mentioned that when you learned Esperanto, that was like you're okay. I can do this. I can learn
Mm,
another language where I can really speak it.
yeah,
For me, that was Japanese. I had the
that's
opportunity to
impressive.
go. Yeah, I know, right? After what my story that I gave you at first, it was kind of crammed down my throat, but I had the opportunity to go on an immersion trip to the west side of Japan, which
Okay.
is Tokyo's over here, and then on the west side, there's Ishikawa or Ishikawa Prefecture,
Hmm.
and I got a 3-week immersion through the academy to go there and live the language, live with the host family, joined a Japanese gym, uh, partied. I mean, it was amazing. And during that trip was when I was like, we're just there. We had like the morning of classes, and then the other half of the day was go join a gym, go on a bike ride, go on a tour, just experience, live this language. So after I did that, that's when I was like, okay, this is pretty serious for me. This is something that I want to do.
Yeah. Did you find that that's interesting that you brought that up because I was wondering. I was listening to some uh, Matt versus Japan. I'm a huge Matt versus Japan fan,
Hmm.
and honestly, anybody who makes language content, I'm a fan of. I don't want it to sound like but
Yeah.
I just wonder out of curiosity, once you got over there and in it, like once you actually went out into the real world, do you find that you maybe like that kind of solidified stuff and maybe even helped you understand a little bit better? Because when you're out there living, or out there speaking, it's not this pre-written dialogue or anything like
Right.
that. Like
Right.
you're having to understand on the fly. Did you find that maybe the first couple of days maybe helped you through some of that stuff, or it was a little bit of a
Oh,
just trying to get into?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, and exactly your point. And that's one of the things I wanted to mention is that I have to have like I can't. I'm not a dabbler. Like
Hmm.
as you probably already know, like I have to have like a purpose for the language that I'm learning. So all of the languages that I've studied, except for French,
Hmm.
I've either gone to that country or I've done business with those people or
Hmm.
I knew somebody that could speak the language. So there was always a purpose. So when I got to Japan and actually got to use it and put it in action, it was like, this is why I do this.
Yeah,
This is pretty awesome.
yeah.
And it
That's
definitely helped me like build my skills. It definitely helped me build my pronunciation. It's just everything, it's just everything packaged into one.
Yeah, I'm actually glad because I know that one of the things that we chatted about bringing up and mentioning was kind of the idea of dabbling, and I know that there's another topic
Yeah.
as well, but we can go ahead and touch on that because I
Yeah.
find it
Sure.
interesting because uh, talking, or you didn't, I don't think you specifically mentioned dabbling, but you talked about studying multiple languages and stuff like that.
Right.
But in your experience, or just with what you do and what you know, my question to you is, how do you, and I'm working on this now myself. Hello, Alan Cruz. Welcome to the stream.
Hmm.
How do you, when you're studying or when you're doing whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
how do you prevent that shiny new object from being like, yo, come chat for a minute?
I like that. I like that you put it that way. The shiny, hey, over here.
Yeah.
No, it's hard, and because I used to be one of those that okay, I would go into Borders, back in the day, right?
Hmm.
I would go into Borders and go to the language section and be like,
Yeah.
man, I like this book, I like that book, I like that book, and I would just snatch them all up.
Hmm.
But first of all, I know I've always been a terrible multitasker. Like
Hmm.
I've just known this for my entire life. I'm like, I cannot do two
Right.
things at once. When they tell you pat your head, rub your stomach at the same, I always failed that. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Uh, I knew that from the jump. But also, as I've gotten older, my goal, I set the goal after I got out of the military, which has been a while now, almost 4 years, was I wanted to be like mastery in two languages,
Hmm.
like the whole thing down, like writing, reading, listening, speaking, everything in two. That was it.
Like
So
two besides your native.
two besides my native,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Obviously, English is my native language, but
Right.
I wanted two. So Spanish was my one, and I got Spanish down. I was thinking it was going to be Japanese at first, but the practicality. I'm a very practical person as well,
Hmm.
and I've also been always a very self-disciplined person too. Like just as my wife. Like once I get up, I'm like a dog that gets a bite.
Hmm.
Once I get a bite, I don't let go until it's done, or it just turns into mush in my teeth.
Right, right. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. Yeah, that's because that's always my problem. And I'll tell you, man. I think that I know why, and this is speaking from personal experience. I know
Yeah.
why people dabble, and it's why I dabble. It's not necessarily because you're interested in the language. Deep down,
Right.
man, there is. This is purely non-scientific and non-doctor speak. This is,
No, I've got you.
but
They're right away.
But my thing is, when I see this new language, right? Like, let's say,
Yeah.
I'm studying Japanese or whatever. Well, it's very hard. So,
Yeah.
what better way to feel good about yourself than jump into, especially a language that's similar to your native, Spanish,
Mhm.
French, for English speakers, obviously. And so, why not jump into that, dabble in it for a couple weeks, because you're going to
Yeah.
start making this progress, and that's what you
Mhm.
look forward to. I think that once you hit that wall,
Yes.
it's that, I think that's where dabbling, and I honestly, I think I would love some scientific studies on this. I'm sure there are somewhere. I've never really looked into
Yeah.
it, but there's got to be a subconscious or thing there where it's more about the idea of getting over this hurdle than it is wanting to
Right.
study another language.
Exactly, and that's what I was gonna say. It's just the path of least resistance, like, and it's funny because I've been going back through when I just started my podcast, and I'm going back through like that intermediate level, and the intermediate level, man, it's so hard. You spend so much time there, like when you're really trying to break through to get past the okay, I can't read. What do I
Mhm.
read? I can't speak. Who do I talk to? Or I can only say like really small sentences. Like, what do I do? That's a hard hurdle to climb.
Yeah.
And when you get there in a certain language, your first thing may be to put it down and go to another language. And I've
Mhm.
definitely felt that, because you're right. You make those strong strides. You gain a lot of proficiency in the first couple of weeks studying a language, and that's far easier than cutting your teeth
Oh yeah.
on something that's hard to read, feeling embarrassed that you don't know how to speak and out to try and speak when you know it's going to sound like garbage because you just know you don't know the language very well enough.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
It
It's
is.
really hard.
It's very, very tough. And especially, and depending on the language, but yeah, I think, anytime you hit that, which I'm not really a good person to speak. I don't know if I'd consider myself an intermediate speaker in anything, but
Mm.
but yeah, you get to a level, especially, once it gets to the point where your vocabulary is solid, but you've really got to start digging into grammar and stuff like that. And especially, I mean, my biggest issues are usually grammar related things. Like I
Yeah.
usually struggle, and especially in Japanese, and that's kind of why
Absolutely.
I'm approaching Japanese. Oh crap! I forgot my Facebook is still up. Let me mute that so that sound doesn't come through. Sorry about that. Boom. There we go. Let me close that. But yeah, I think I'm trying to put these sentences together, and it's just this particle, that particle, this particle,
Oh yeah.
and I think part of the reason I'm studying Japanese now the way that I'm studying it is because first and foremost, I believe in the idea of what Matt versus Japan does. I do buy into the mass immersion stuff, right?
Yeah.
I definitely
Mm-hmm.
buy into that. I've just never given it a fair shot. I'll do it
Mm-hmm.
for a day or two and then I stop. But
Yeah.
what better way to try? And I know, okay, and we'll get into this too. My brain is scattered, dude. I mean, if
That's
you've ever
okay.
watched anything,
Right.
then you know. But so the idea of study, right, is the idea of comprehensible input, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
But my issue
Yeah.
with that statement is I think it also is kind of false because if the input that you're listening to is comprehensible, you speak the language. Like,
Right.
um,
Very true.
so because I in a recent video I mentioned that I was watching stuff and people were like, oh, if you don't understand it, don't listen to it. There's no point. But I don't believe that. I do believe that you should look for the idea of these quote unquote +1 sentences, or the idea of 90% of the sentence, and I get that and I understand that's what most people are talking about when they say comprehensible input. But I just today when I was doing a little bit of immersion earlier today, I was watching like I don't even remember, somebody play Mario Maker or something on YouTube in
Yeah, yeah.
Japanese. But at one point, this girl said a word, and something happened that has never happened really before. And I said, I've heard that word before.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I went and looked it up, I had never heard that word before. Like, I've never studied that word before.
Yeah.
But, and it's not a lot. I've only been immersing for about a week. I'm probably 10 or 12 hours into it. But I'm also not a complete beginner in Japanese. I do have a little bit of background.
That helps.
But
Yeah.
I'm starting to pick up patterns in their speech. I can't think of an exact example. I wish I could. But I was watching Erased on Netflix the other day.
Yeah.
And a specific pattern happened. And I was like, I get that. Okay, because in a previous sentence, they said this, and it was that either same verb ending or whatever the grammatical thing was. And so, I don't know, man. I think that there's something to the idea of immersing, even if you don't quite understand it. I think your brain is smart enough to unlock that stuff and kind of pick it up.
Absolutely. And because that's the way the brain works, right? The brain works on pattern recognition. So it's taking what it already knows and then it's trying to match new input to what it already knows. So that's why you can hear something where you don't really know the words, but the structure sounds familiar. And then, of course, from the context of what you're seeing on the screen, especially if you're watching something like Netflix, then you're going to intuit that, oh, that word means X because of the context and the grammar structure.
Yeah.
That fused together gives you kind of this superpower to where you know what a word means when you really don't know what it means. It's kind of a weird thing, but it does happen.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. It's a weird feeling. It's one of the weirdest feeling. It's probably the weirdest feeling I've had in languages since, and I think I told this on that podcast with Polyglot Files. But when I was reading through Facebook and I read a post and then I continued skimming and then I said, "Hold on, what just happened?" And I scrolled back up, and the entire post was in Esperanto, and I didn't have any idea of I just read it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so that was a super super weird feeling.
it's pretty amazing.
Do you it still blows my mind. Like, I respect people that don't do the dabble, man, but I love the idea that you have such self-motivation and I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is. You have such I don't know. Poise isn't the word, but we'll use it. But like the fact that you can maintain from going off, because there's got to be other languages that you've at least seen and kind of been like, oh, that's interesting.
There have been. So a couple of years ago, we went to me and my wife. We went to Myanmar, over in Southeast Asia. So we went on a trip there. So I wanted to pick up a little Burmese before I left. That's their national language over there, and I did that. Just for a couple of weeks, but it was just enough. It was just a short trip to get by.
Yeah.
Also went to Singapore. This was 2 years ago when I went to Singapore, A lot of my wife's family, they live there. So
Okay.
when they have 4 national languages there,
Right.
so I did this kind of Singapore challenge where I did all 4 of the languages. I studied a little bit of Tamil, did of course Mandarin, um, and I always forget the fourth language, and of course English, and then I always forget the
Right.
fourth one. I can't
Yeah.
remember what it is, but I studied all 4 of them just within the time that I was there. So I'd have those kind of little deviations where, okay, I'll kind of look at it, but I won't seriously dabble. Like if there's no trip coming up or if there's no reason for me to learn another
Hmm.
language, I'm sticking with what I
Right.
normally do.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think a lot of it depends on your goals and stuff. I think
Oh yeah.
honestly, man, I think that the idea, I made a video on this a long time ago. I think that the idea of being a polyglot is bad for the language community. Hear me out before anybody starts judging. Anybody's watching this
Well,
later, before you
I got
comment.
something to say on it too, but I'll
But
let you go ahead.
I think that you have these people, these monolingual people, myself included at one time, even though I still don't know if I'd fully consider myself bilingual, but I speak enough of something to feel okay. But I think that you have these monolingual people who get this idea in their head that they're going to learn a language.
Yeah.
I think that they watch these videos of, I speak 30 languages,
Yeah.
and you see these videos and they're scripted
Oh yeah.
videos,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's the idea of Matt versus Japan even talks about this, the fluency illusion, where you don't
Yeah.
speak. For example,
Mm,
if somebody started speaking Thai, Aaron from Fing Tam Languages,
mm,
every video, Aaron, every video, but he's been studying Thai. Well, if he started speaking Thai, I speak
mhm.
none. So even if he barely speaks it,
Of
that sounds
course.
fluent as crap to me.
Yeah, of course.
And so I think that seeing these people speak 30 languages, even though they don't speak 30 languages, I think makes people want to do that. And then
Yeah.
they don't want to wait. They don't want to spend a year learning this, a year learning that. They're just like, boom, I'm going to learn 30 languages this year and let's go.
Yeah, and the polyglot thing, and that's funny that you mentioned the polyglot thing because I have never self-referred myself as a polyglot, even though I probably am. Like if somebody who knew me, like, man, he speaks Chinese, Japanese, Spanish.
Right.
Yeah, sounds like a polyglot to me. But
Right.
I've never done it, and one of the reasons is I maybe like a little bit like you. I'm pretty fluent in Spanish. I'm pretty good in Japanese. I'm decent in Chinese, but I don't know. I just feel like the label doesn't fit. And
Yeah.
I feel like what happens with a lot of people is that they see these videos and the word polyglot just sounds so sexy. It just sounds so good,
Oh, for
right?
sure.
It
Yeah.
just to even like bilingual, right? Especially
Yeah.
here in the US, like being bilingual, when you say like I'm truly bilingual in Spanish and English at a
Yeah.
minimum, that sounds pretty impressive
Yeah.
knowing that we have a pretty generally monolingual culture here in the US. So
Right.
I just feel like people want to take on that title to be able to call themselves bilingual or trilingual or polyglot. It just sounds good. But you're right, getting the work to get there. Because I'll tell you, it took me from where I am now with Spanish to when I started, which was pretty much nothing. It took me about 4 years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was if I told you like if we had more time and I told you everything that I did to get where I'm at in Spanish to be able to like speak it on demand whenever I want to say it like I can now,
Yeah.
it you'd probably be like, "Whoa."
Right.
Like the average person would be like, "No way."
Yeah. They would see, and you, I guess, with Spanish, if you're doing that, see, and that's the thing too. If you're not having to translate in your head, you've acquired that language. It's not a
Mhm.
language that you know, but you still have to translate in your head. You've
Yeah.
acquired it.
Yeah. Lo he aprendido de todo.
Yeah.
I've learned it. I've learned it. And when I tell
Yeah.
people he aprendido español por mi cuenta on my own,
Mhm.
and I can just say it like that, just like they're like, I've had kids at my school be like, "Whoa, the teacher speaks better Spanish than you,"
Right.
which is kind of cool, when they
Yeah.
say it that way. But I'm not saying that to show off or anything.
No, no, no.
I'm saying it like that was hard fought to like get where I wanted to be to where I could use this at a professional level.
Yeah. No, I
And
get
that's
what you're.
something that I don't see a lot, and I wish I saw more. Because when I was kind of a couple of years ago, I was really, I had just gotten out of the military. I was just kind of having a hard time figuring out what exactly I wanted to do, and I was looking for those examples of people who were like, okay, they took this language all the way, and I didn't find a lot of that. You know, I wasn't as involved in the language learning community
Mhm.
like I am now on Twitter and on social media, but
Yeah.
in general, I didn't see that. So I was like, well, I don't know where to look. I don't know where to go. So that's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, and that's one of the
Mhm.
reasons why I continued to go as far as I did. Well, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be the one to do it then.
Yeah, that's it's. I'm glad you mentioned the social media. Didn't you used to do like
Yeah,
more
yeah,
YouTube stuff? I noticed that there's not because I actually went to your channel because well, if you'll remember,
yeah, yeah.
like a month or two ago, I had made a tweet because you had taken some time off, and I was like, has anybody heard from this guy? Like, because
Where did he go? Is he
yeah,
okay? Um,
and so
yeah.
I went
So
to your YouTube and I noticed,
yeah,
yeah,
I was doing vlogging, and I was having fun with it. Honestly, what would stop me from doing it is my hats off to YouTube, 'cause I know you've been really pushing it up on YouTube, and I just want to say congratulations. Like I know you just hit
I appreciate
750 subscribers
750,
or something
yeah.
like that around. Yeah, I know the work that it takes to like constantly put out, do stuff like this, and the back end stuff was what was killing me.
Mm,
Like I would shoot like a 30-minute video, and not even 30-minute, like a 20-minute video, and the uptime to do it and editing if you want to edit, which I hate editing stuff.
mm-hmm.
It was just really a huge time sink for me.
I
So I think
understand.
that's why I'm better off doing podcasts because they're just a lot faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just that time investment. But I liked vlogging; it was fun.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know. I don't know if a lot of people on this channel know it or not, but I have another channel that's just called. It's just my name, Jonathan C. Well, actually, it's Seabolt TV now. Um, six hundred over 650 consecutive days. I've vlogged, edited, everything.
Wow,
600,
wow.
almost 2 full years.
My hat's off to you, man, because I know like that's what gets me about some of this stuff too, and I'll take it back to language learning because um, I know a lot of people like you and other people in the community are big in like documenting their progress,
Mm-hmm.
documenting their journey. But as you know, you and I both know, it takes time to do that,
Yeah.
and the time you're editing videos and making title cards and doing and setting up stuff like this,
Yeah.
that's time that you could be spending with
Learning.
your language.
And that's honestly, that's why I have the approach that I do in terms of shooting video. That's why I always say, guys, I'm not scripted. I don't try to make stuff pretty. I want you to get the rawest, just
Yeah.
what it is. Because usually I shoot a video and I just immediately, you'll even see me go towards the camera to turn it off. And it's because, like, I don't, like, I just want people to, you know,
Yeah.
part of what I want to do on YouTube or in languages in general is everything, you know, again, like we talked about earlier. Oh, I speak 30 languages. Let me count to 4 in
Yeah.
French. See, I'm fluent in French. That's nonsense.
Mhm.
I want to show the progress. I think a lot of people get into it and they see these people who aren't struggling
Yeah.
and that makes them feel bad. So I feel like
Right.
if they can see someone else struggling, maybe somewhere I can influence somebody to. I'm not a great example because I quit everything and I understand that. I'm sure that there's anybody listening right now, there's comments that are probably like, but you've quit literally everything. But like, if I can show the struggle, maybe it can
Mhm.
influence somebody to not quit.
Absolutely, and it is about the struggle. I mean, and I'll tell you that. Yeah, I think you sent out some. You tweeted something on Twitter not too long ago, a couple of days ago, about this guy who had a channel. You would like support this guy, and he was speaking like very,
Hmm.
rudimentary Mandarin
Yeah.
Chinese. But and I commented, and I was like, seriously, this is more of what people need to see. This is the real, like, this is what a beginner in a language
Yeah.
sounds like. And he may sound like this now, but I guarantee you, he sounds much better today. Like, I don't know when that was filmed,
Yeah.
but
I think he said it was
if
like
you
2 or 3 years
keep
ago. Like,
doing
I
that
guess he has a bunch
every day,
of.
yeah, you're gonna grow in the language. And you and I both know that's what it takes. It's not always this scripted, pretty, oh, it sounds like a native speaker. That's
Right.
mm-mm.
Yeah, no, it's and that's that's the thing. You are I don't know. Well, to put it in perspective, I was listening to an interview today with it was Matt versus Japan and Dogen, and they were talking about in Japanese. And you got to think those are two of the most highly proficient Japanese speakers in terms of learning it as a second language. And they
Yeah.
both even joked about how once you get past about that 25 or 30-second mark, people realize, okay, you're not a native. Like if you were on a phone or something,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
you got to think
Oh,
they've been studying it for a decade plus and are extremely proficient. So
yeah, and I think people have that. That's a very big misconception that I'm glad you brought up. Like, you want to learn it to where, and I think we all have illusions of that, right? You know, the
yeah.
the fantasy of speaking this language so well that nobody can tell that
Hmm.
you're not a native speaker, and it is a fantasy.
It
It's
is.
unfortunate, but it is, because they can tell if it's not your pronunciation that gives you away. It's something that you say that's culturally off.
Yeah.
That's not the way. Just like we can tell when we hear a non-native English speaker speaking, we can tell, oh, they're from Mexico, or they're from Spain,
Yeah.
or they're from whatever. But it's not. They weren't born and raised in the
Yeah.
U.S. because we don't talk that way.
Yeah.
We don't.
Well, yeah. For
Yeah.
example, if somebody was, I think, which my wife would know this because she's a grammar fan. I hate grammar and I hate all the stuff that
Hey,
surrounds it.
I'm right there with
But
you. Amen.
like, I know that if you say like, if somebody says something, or there's an expression for whom, or you know how
Mm, yes.
WHOM is a word
Yeah.
whom. If somebody
Yes. Yes.
said that, I would be like, they're speaking English as a second language because no one says that. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Nobody,
Like,
like, colloquially, right? Like, in proper English, yeah, to use whom, there's a certain, I don't even know the rule for using whom,
yeah,
but there's a certain rule for when it's appropriate to use whom, but whom says it that way,
yeah,
you know?
exactly,
No, I don't know.
exactly. Hold on, let's see here. Alberto says that's a pretty good Spanish accent talking about you. So there you
Gracias.
go. We got a yo and we got a Seabolt. How many resources did you use on average to learn a language? That's a tough question. I'll turn that into a question for both of us. And we can talk about resources. It doesn't have to be
Oh,
an exact, because I know that's hard, and especially the longer that you study, you're
oh
obviously
God.
stacking them on. But what would you say? What is a general study day for Keith?
Okay, so I'm glad you brought this up because I was waiting to talk about it. Studying for me looks very different nowadays than it did. Like, I'm like an athlete, right? When it comes to my language learning,
Hmm.
like, I'm on off season and I'm on off season. Like, I'm on
Sure.
season when I'm like training for like a
Like a,
trip,
mhm.
or there's an event coming up or something that I want the language for. But I'm off season when there's nothing going on. And obviously with this coronavirus stuff and everything, there's really nothing going on. So I kind of go into my off season like maintenance mode.
Mhm.
So for me, that looks like a lot of reading. I love reading just in general. Like, I read books in English, but what I've started doing is I've started alternating books in the languages that I want to maintain
Okay.
between my English books. So I just did a Mandarin companion reader. This is a fantastic, just beginner, just kind of beginner intermediate language, elementary readers in Mandarin.
Hmm.
And then I'll read, like, I can read entire books in Spanish. So,
Okay.
like, high level books too. I just read uh I always get his name wrong. Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens. I just read that in Spanish.
Okay.
Uh, uh,
Yeah.
de los animales a los dioses. And I read all of that, and that's a very scientific, like, high level book. But
Yeah.
that's all I do basically. And then I watch Chinese dramas with my
Okay.
wife.
Okay.
So that's, and then, but I mean, I think you mentioned this in your Polyglot Files interview too. But you're kind of always, it's always kind of around you, right? So when I'm on Twitter, I see posts in
Right.
Spanish, in Japanese. I'll see stuff in Mandarin too. So it's always kind of coming at me.
Hmm.
But I'm not like, get a book, sit down, study. Apps, like, I don't fool with any apps right now. Like, nah.
Yeah. No,
What about you?
I understand that right now.
Yeah.
What do we?
Yeah, I know you just offloaded a lot of your apps.
Yeah, I just got rid of basically all of them.
Yeah.
Right
How's it working
now,
out?
it's good so far. It's a very weird experience because I'm so used to it. You know what I'm like. But
Yeah.
we're coming up. I started the first. I started with the idea of doing like the immersion. And honestly, I keep talking about immersion and stuff. I'm not.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm fully doing the MIA thing. It's just that's what
Yeah.
I've taken a lot of what he said and then I've kind of made it my own. But for the most part, I'm following it because am I going to listen to the commenter who couldn't pass a JLPT 5? in 5, or am I going to listen to the dude who's proficient and knows 30,000 Japanese words and sounds like a native in some aspect? You know what I mean?
Okay.
But
That's right.
so right now my study is very, very weird. I'm still getting used to it, but basically here's what I'll do. I created a YouTube account which it's still in the same like email, like where you can just make multiple accounts or whatever. Under the same email. That way I don't have to sign in and out. You can just swap profiles. But I did that for Japanese. I set my location to Japanese. No, I didn't. No. I set it to Japan. But it's another example of you don't even know your native language. But so I set it to Japan, and the first video I watched was in Japanese. That way, the only thing that's recommended to me is Japanese. So it doesn't matter if I go down a YouTube rabbit hole. It's Japanese content. I watched a video the other day, literally, of a dude teaching people how to palm a basketball. Whatever. So, which I also learned, what is the word? Baichin? Slap. Like, baichin.
Right.
Like, so I learned that because just in that video, like, contextually, I'm sure there's other ways that it could be used. But, so I will do that for, I don't know, probably an hour and a half. I'll just, obviously it's throughout the day. It's not all at one time. And that's what I love about YouTube. 5-minute video here, 10-minute video there. It's not a TV show or anything.
Yeah.
So after that, throughout the day as well, I do my remember the kanji, the lazy kanji, the 1,000. I'm like 270 or 290 in.
Nice.
And that's going pretty solid. So I do that. I do 30 a day, which I know people probably would have a stroke over because it does get, like, today I was like 45 minutes on Anki doing all my reviews and stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to get through that because once I burn through that, even if I have an 80% recognition rate, I can still get on to other things, vocabulary, like more intensively and stuff. So I do remember the kanji. But then what I'll do is I will jump on Netflix, and I have the Learn Languages with Netflix add-on,
nice.
or like the extension or whatever. And so I will go through and I watch. Right now I'm watching Erased, which I've seen before, and the reason I'm doing that is because I've seen it before. I know the context of what's happening because I've seen it, so I can hear those words and I kind of know the story. So it's kind of helping put things in place. And what I'll do is, about every 5 to 6, 7 minutes, between 5 and 10 minutes, I will pause it. I will look at one word from a sentence, and I will write it down. Like, I'll just pick a word at random.
That's great.
And I'll write the kanji, and I'll try to make a little story. Like, this is, like, what is the word? Oh, well, okay, so I can't even remember. So, like, shinpai, not senpai, shinpai is to, like, worry.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm sure the pronunciation is probably not good there, but so, and I just make a little stupid story, like, senpai is happy, but you don't want shinpai to worry, like, to where and I know that it's incredibly stupid, but it works. Like, there's some things that I don't remember, and I am continuing to go over from time to time.
Of course.
And I usually try to get about six or seven words, just additional vocabulary. And that way, if I hear them again, like, I've learned a couple of words that way. I've learned kawaru, which is like to change.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned naio, which is like content or context or like contents of. And the way that I remember that was a grammar pattern. So if you're going to say that the book changed, it's not the book changed. It's hanno naio. It's contents of the book. So it's not just book. So I learned a grammar pattern to it as well.
There you go.
And that's literally what I do. And this has been the best 7 days of study that I've ever had, because I'm not missing anything. I'm not getting a question incorrect or anything like that. I'm not penalized for spelling something wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just enjoying the content. And I immerse for usually a little over 2 hours a day.
Mm.
So
wow, That's a lot, and it sounds like you're actually you're not just immersing, because that's one thing I know that I used to do that wasn't very effective, which I would like immerse it, but I wouldn't apply it.
Right.
So I see, you're making the stories and you're using it and you're making sentences. That's the best way to do it.
Yep.
You're getting it from context and then you're employing it to actually make it
Yep.
stick in your mind. That's the best way.
And normally I was doing sentence cards. That was my last video that I made, was talking about sentence cards, but I'm not doing that anymore because I got to the point to where I don't understand so much. It was just too much. So
Yeah.
the reason I'm doing those words is because now I can go back and watch this series. All those words are used in context in that series because I'm only getting the words from the one show.
Exactly.
I'm watching a couple, but I'm picking vocabulary specifically from one show right now.
Yeah.
That way I can get it all in context.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So that's a study. That's my resources: YouTube, Netflix, and Anki.
So I guess my question for you that I wanted to ask about, the dabbling, like when you start, like when you jump, like, because I know you were doing, I watched one of your like stuff with me with Korea. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
I did some research ahead of time, and I was like, okay, I just want to see what he's been doing.
Right.
Well, I know you were doing Korean, and now you're on Japanese, and you mentioned Greek, I think.
Mm-hmm. I still am studying Greek.
So
Yeah.
when you jump from the language, do you like strategically jump, or is it just more like I'm just gonna just grab?
Well, I do. The story I told about Korean is true. I love Korean, and I kind of had fallen out of love with Japanese. So in terms of jumping to Korean, that is a language I genuinely want to learn.
Yeah.
I think what got me about Korean was, well, I had talked to a friend about some stuff, and he was just talking about how he was like, you can't give up, like you've got to go, you just have to. You've got to change what you're doing. Like, what you're doing is not working. And it's true. I've been doing the same method of language learning for years, and I've advanced to none. You know what I mean? And so that's ultimately why I changed. And that was kind of like when I made a playlist today on my channel for like the MIA stuff, and it was literally, I think it's called like the last shot at Japanese. Like, this is the last go. Like, I've tried everything else. Yeah, I've tried everything else for Japanese, but I can't here. But in terms of the other languages like Greek, because I do want to speak to. Of course, it's not a great time with everything going on, but
Yeah.
there is a Greek restaurant and they do speak Greek there. I asked them, so I can speak it there. And Greeks, and that's a language. So 90% of my time is spent in Japanese.
I see.
And that's because I'm not trying to become highly proficient at Greek. I just want to be able to say enough to speak to them a little bit. Plus, I am a firm believer in Japanese or whatever language you're studying can be super hard and it can start bogging you down. So jump over here for just a day or two. If you're having an off day, no one said that you have to study. Study this a little bit, and then it's insane at how quick you can just kind of turn around. Because once you go, especially to just any other language, and you start making a little bit of advancements, you come back here, some of those words start to click.
Exactly. Sometimes you need that just break. And that's something that I got over when I was younger. I used to think, man, if I stop doing this, then it's just going to, go down and deteriorate, and my skills are going to just go to crap, but that never happened. I usually came back stronger and better. And now with the system that I'm doing, with kind of alternating between really Mandarin and Spanish, that's really all I'm doing at this point. I go back to Mandarin after a few months of just hearing the Chinese drama, not reading at all, and I'm picking up more of the characters. My pronunciation is better. Like, there's some fluency building.
Yeah.
And that's where you want to be.
Yeah. Well, and the thing I've found too is now that I'm not stressing about getting stuff incorrect.
Yeah.
In Anki, I'll give you a great example. I'll give you the best example I can. The character for like fall, and I don't mean like the season. I mean like I believe it means like to fall, like if you trip or something. But it's the character of it's each, like it's the character for each, but it's got like the house top on it, and it's got the 3 dashes to the side. I could not remember that, and I'm talking for almost since I started learning remember the kanji.
Wow.
And so out of nowhere today, I flipped, and I fail it every time. I fail it, and then eventually I'll remember it because there's 3 cards left in my deck, and of course I'm going to remember because I said it 5 seconds ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, today I was going through and I hit, and it was just like boom, and I was like fall, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's there now. So like, and not beating myself up over it, kind of just made it work. Same thing with vocabulary. There's words, even though that I picked them myself, I may not exactly remember what it means, but meh. I mean, whatever. It's going to stick.
Turn on this light. I'm going into shadow mode right now.
Oh, you're good.
I don't want to.
No, you're fine.
All right, that's better.
In chat, what's up? Welcome, Soul. Welcome to the stream. But yeah, I think that there's something to it, and like I've said it before in past videos, because when I did MIA before, I did, or, Master Immersion Approach before, I did it for a couple of days, and those couple of days felt great, but it was so, I didn't eliminate the distractions on my phone, so it was easy to get back into that, and I wasn't applying it. I was immersing maybe 20 minutes a day. Now that I've kind of made myself do it for, like, now that I'm getting into a system, it's just having something that doesn't feel like work. I'm having fun. I watched that video, that dude shooting a basketball. Cool, I love basketball, I hear this girl with this cute little voice speaking and playing Mario Maker, and it's just like, it's fun, because, I mean, a lot of Japanese women will speak where it's that high-pitched, like, I'm having a lot of fun, what's going on, you know what I mean, like, and so it's fun, it's building that into my subconscious. This is fun, like, it's not like some angry, like, oh god, I hate everything that's going on right now, like, it's just this fun, happy, stuff, and that's changed me tremendously.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I tell anybody who asks me about learning languages. I'm like, you have to make something that's for you.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's MIA approach or whatever, because some people they are fine with just the apps, and I think you mentioned this with the Polyglot Files interview as well. You were just basically like, there's a time when the apps are good because it's very on the rails, it's very guided, they're giving you these grammatical structures, they're giving you these words, but after you reach a certain point, you kind of need to form your own plan. And that's why I feel like a lot of apps and programs and things like this, they kind of they have a limited utility in that sense, because once you reach the point where they don't go past that, they're not meant to take you to this C1 advanced speaker level. They're just going to get you to upper, mid, intermediate if you're lucky.
No, absolutely.
You've got to find another way that is going to work for you. Yeah. And I think you found it.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that hopefully we'll see if I can stick with this. But I do feel good about it. But to give you an example, in the apps, like I learned the word for, well, like classroom in Japanese is like kaisha. Hold on. No.
Yeah, it depends on the type of classroom.
Yeah. So I was watching this TV show, and I learned that through Lingo Deer. And I will never say anything negative about Lingo Deer. I still love Lingo Deer, but it wasn't them, it was me, you know what I mean? It was that kind of thing. Like, I had to find my new stuff, but well, when I was watching this TV show, when I was watching this was when I was watching Slam Dunk, the anime, and somebody said Kaishine, Kaishine, and I was like, I've heard that word, but what does that mean? Even though I knew that word, from where I had never heard it in context or spoken the way it would naturally be spoken in a conversation, I had no clue what they meant. But now that I've heard it within context, and I kind of hear how a Japanese person would say that, because it's not that very clear, Kaishine, or whatever. I wish. Hold on, I'm gonna look that up on G-Show, because I
think it's Kaishin.
Kaishin. Okay. I knew it's something like.
My Japanese is very rusty as well, so.
But yeah, once I heard it in context and how it was kind of spoken in rhythm, I can now recognize it a lot easier.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, kanji was one of my first kind of obsessions with Japanese. Like, after I tell this story, I told it in one of my recent podcast episodes about how I had studied Japanese all throughout college, and then it was like 4 years after I'd started that I tried to read a Japanese newspaper. I was floored. I was just like, man, I can't read this.
Right.
Oh, kanji. So I used to go onto this dictionary.com. It's probably still around. I don't remember, but it was Japanese dictionary, and you would just look up the words and look
Hmm.
up the kanji. And I really loved the historical context, like where they kind of came from,
Hmm.
what the symbols mean, and things like that. I was always fascinated by that. So I would try and learn as many as I could, and I did. I learned them. So I brought that up because you mentioned remembering the kanji and that you're learning all these kanji, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's something that kept me motivated was what kanji am I going to learn today? You
Yeah.
know?
No, absolutely. And that's I actually look forward to that. That's the reason I do 30 is because
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't mind it. Like some of the review like today I had like I think 70 reviews.
yeah,
And I understand that and that's part of what takes so long. But I really enjoy. I think kanji, even though it sucks, but I think it's one of
yeah.
the coolest parts of Japanese. Like I think that's one of the coolest aspects of it.
Yeah, it's the same with Mandarin too. Like, and I'm doing it all over again with Mandarin now, even though it does help my knowledge of Japanese
Hmm.
to translate over to Mandarin, obviously, because that's the origin for Japanese. But uh, different sounds, obviously, and then of course it's kind of confusing because there's characters that look similar, but of course it's pronounced in Mandarin, not in Japanese.
Right.
So but that is a motivation because that was one of the things that prevented me from learning Mandarin Chinese is I would hear all the time, oh, the tones, and then you gotta learn the writing system, and that's really hard, and all this
Yeah.
stuff, and it took me a good. I've been doing Mandarin for about 2 years
Hmm.
now, so it took me a while to get the basics down and get to where I could read and understand, but
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
I liked I hold on. I'm gonna go to your YouTube channel on my computer because you had a video. Way, what is it? Way of the interpreter, or something like that.
Yeah,
Way
way of the
of the
interpreter.
if I could spell. Oh my god, dude. Way of the. I think you only have the one. Did you delete some videos?
Yeah, yeah. No, I got rid of them. I took them down because I'm one of those things like and goes back to kind of my personality. Like I'm an all or nothing type of dude. Like
Sure.
either I'm going in all the way or it's not gonna be no halfsies for me.
Right. I love my one of my favorite things, like one of my favorite videos ever, was you in that supermarket and just.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
assuming was that maybe your wife or a friend or something that was picking
yeah,
up
yeah,
and you would tell them what it was in Chinese. Like I thought that was
yeah.
so incredible. Like that was such
That
a
was
good
my
idea.
wife. She was behind the camera, and my wife can be very shy. So even like being behind the camera, she's like she doesn't want to do it.
That's
But
cool.
no, she helped me out with that video, and that was fun. Like I was trying to think of a way to like I don't know some kind of content, and I was thinking along the same lines of what you're doing, right?
Hmm.
Like coming up, just kind of documenting like how I'm learning Mandarin Chinese, but just
Yeah.
like I already talked about. I'm like, man, the back end stuff got me, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a ton of fun, and I think it keeps you motivated too. Like, yeah, you get some hate every now and then. You get some people that are just like, oh, why aren't you learning this or why aren't you this good? But
Right.
I think people that see it appreciate like because they know if they're really struggling to try and learn Mandarin Chinese or Japanese or whatever, that's what they sound like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
And I'm sure there's more people out there than not, or that have stories like me. I've been studying Japanese since 2009,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
can't do anything, and it's because
yeah,
I'm just not studying the way that I need to study in order to learn it.
yeah.
If
There's a
applic if
period. That's that period you have to push through.
if
You know?
applications okay, and here's my thing. If I've used if you name an application that has been created for learning Japanese, I've probably used it. Now I'm not saying I've finished it and I fully understand that. Not
Yeah,
saying anything negative. But if they were as effective as they say, dude,
yeah.
I should be speaking circles around people right
I
now.
know. I know. And that's the tough part about it. And they market themselves that way. And we all know that. They market themselves as the be all end all to learn
5 minutes
Japanese
a
and to learn
day. No,
Spanish.
dude, 5 minutes a day ain't doing
Yeah,
nothing.
this is all you need, right? But we know it's not true. And especially nowadays where it's so easy to, set up a system like you've set up to where you can use Netflix, you can use remembering the conjure, you can
Hmm.
use Anki, and you can kind of use a summation of all these tools to get the desired result. You're not going to get all that using Rosetta Stone
Yeah.
or Duolingo or lingo deer or anything. You know.
There is a guy. I'm gonna look this up. I'm gonna put it in the comments section or in the in my description. If you guys want to see this, you can. There's a guy. I'm subscribed to him, but I don't know what his daggone name is. I completed every duo. And now at the time of this video, when it was made, yeah, Christian Muthagala. All right, his name is something. The point is, though, this guy made a video. He completed, at the time of this release, May 11th, 2018, he had completed every Duolingo course.
In this video, I'm going to analyze the...
There we go. Sorry, you're going to hear that for a second. He completed every single Duolingo course that was available at that time, or by that time.
Wow.
And he gives you an in-depth of what it had, how it's like a 20-minute video, what it had, what it did, and if he could even remotely speak after he completed it.
Yeah. Duolingo, I know it's pretty contentious in the community. I've seen it used by a few schools actually that have used it to introduce kids to language. And my biggest problem with it is the non-native speech. And I know some trees do have the native speech, but yeah, I watched, you talked about that in the Polyglot Files interview, and yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, to me, they should have native speakers, but for some reason they don't. I don't know why, but it just, especially at the beginning, you've got to have native speaker content. Like, you need a jump off point for the language. You can't just, and that's why it's hard, right? It's hard to just read a language on a paper and start speaking it. You can start saying the words, but you're not going to get the intonation. You're not going to get the stress. You're really not going to get the pronunciation correct because you're just kind of guessing.
Yeah.
You need to hear it just like you did with your native language, English. You did it unknowingly when you were a kid, but with this, you know that you need to get some input from somebody who speaks the language well.
Yeah. And ultimately, that's why I've changed my learning style to what it is, because what better way? I mean, and again, I know that we don't learn the exact same way. Like, I get that. But there are too many tried and true reviews on YouTube, and I'm not talking about just the MIA approach. I'm talking about people who specifically study through input-based content, video, reading, things like that. Speaking of reading, before I go further, people who have learned via that way and learned to a very high degree.
Absolutely.
Since I don't know if you would have any right off. I know that you talked about reading. If you have any, like, specifically, like, light novels for Japanese that you would recommend, you can send those to me at some point, too. Because I do want to start, because I do think learning these kanji is great, the way that I'm learning them. I'm fine with the idea of remember the kanji. But I also do think seeing them in context would help kind of cement them. And plus seeing how they can be combined with other things and stuff like that. So if you have any... I say light novels just because I want something short shorter and stuff like that. But
I know there's a guy that I follow on Twitter that's always posting stuff. I don't know if you follow him too. His name is like Jordan B or something, but he's a black guy and he just loves reading manga. And so he came out with a list of like 10 manga that he wanted to read. Like, this is what I read, this one. And I was never a big manga fan. I'm actually, I don't even watch that much anime, but manga is a good way to get into reading.
Let's see. Apps are good for dabbling, but not serious acquisition. I can be your test study for that. That is fully true. I agree on getting content.
I could agree with that. I
agree on getting content for native speakers. That's so important. Definitely.
Yeah.
And then Big Perm says, what puts me off learning Japanese is reading is so hard. But, I'm going to be honest. It's... You probably did the same thing that I did. When I started learning hiragana, just hiragana, not kanji, not katakana, when I just started learning hiragana, I thought to myself, at no point am I ever going to be able to read this.
Yeah.
If you show me a sentence that is written all in hiragana, I can read it almost, probably very closely to the same speed that I would read the same sentence in English. I may not know what it says, but I can read it like that. Yeah. So the reading is that's why I want to incorporate reading into my immersion, because I do want to, especially there are some characters that I can read no problem. Like there are
Yeah.
some that I can read just as fast. Ema, for example, even when it's combined with the character for day. So when it's read as kyo or
Yep.
whatever, like I'm perfectly fine with. And that just comes from repetition.
Yeah.
Gakusei, sensei, just things that you see over and over. I can read the like it's not even a question. I'm good. Nihongo or any kind of language with go, or when kuni is there, when the character for country kuni is there, like I can read it no problem. Or I guess it's also ku too, like chugoku or whatever. But yeah.
No, that's good. That sounds like you're really starting to internalize it. This would be interesting if you could actually like take it further,
Yeah. Well, and we can actually jump into, because the other thing that you had sent a message about is the benefits of going to being, you said, from no proficiency to professional proficiency.
Yeah.
Because I think that so we can get into that, but I do think that there are a lot of people that even speak. I think there's probably a lot of YouTube polyglots who may embellish their
Oh yeah, absolutely.
their level a little bit. So yeah, go ahead and let's jump into that.
Yeah. So I'd love to. So give a little background about this since we haven't talked about it. So after I got out of the military, my goal was to become a Spanish court interpreter.
Okay.
So, it was pretty weird. And every time I told somebody in my family or one of my friends, like, yeah, I'm going to be a court interpreter, like, so
you make some,
like, what are you trying to do?
Make some good money.
So, I actually got into a program. There's a school here in California. It's called the Southern California Institute of Interpreting.
Whoa.
And it's online. So
Okay.
I was doing it through correspondence, but of course, to be an interpreter, you need to know a very high level of Spanish, which I did not have.
Mhm.
This was back in 2016 in the fall. I could barely say any word. So actually, the first thing I started doing was translating articles for online. So I was translating TED Talks.
Okay.
So I figured that was a good way to build my vocabulary, and it helped for a while. It was cutting my teeth. It was painful. So in conjunction with that, I was doing classes for my interpreting things in my interpreting program. So I was getting legal vocabulary, and I was doing medical interpreting as well. I was studying that too. So I took a 40-hour course to learn all of the Spanish parts of the body, all that stuff. But
yeah.
I have the spirals. They're over there, and I didn't bring them. I go get them, but they're full of just words that I used to write down. I mean, legal terms, medical terms, all these things. So the problem was I just did not have the native fluency in Spanish that I needed. So the first year I was struggling. I felt how you feel with your Japanese. I was just frustrated, and more so because I was doing it full time and I wanted to get a job with this.
Right.
And I'm kind of like waiting, I'm living with my girlfriend, now wife at the time. So that worked out. But I'm like,
yes, hey, at least the positive comes
kind
from
of
it.
under some pressure, like, hey, I need this to work out. This isn't just a dabbling thing. This is like, I want this to be a career.
Yeah.
So I made some big moves about 3 years ago. In terms of learning Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
I started volunteering at a local library in the town I used to live in, and I was doing Spanish, English language tutoring for native speakers of Spanish. So I would go there and I would try and help them out, and I wasn't very good at it because I couldn't speak very much Spanish.
Right.
But then that year, me and my wife love to travel, so we actually took a trip to Nicaragua.
Okay.
So we went to Nicaragua. We went to Nicaragua, and that was like my first trial by fire. And this leads me to my first, like, if you're trying to go from like zero to hero, so to speak, and like you want to go to professional level, you have to do things before you're ready. I know that's one of the things we talk about, like in the language learning community, like kind of diving in, but it's one thing to like make a YouTube video and, because you've made videos before, like you're not scripting it, but you're thinking about what you want to say, obviously.
Oh,
you have kind of a point you want to make.
Yeah.
And we can do that, but like producing raw organic speech on demand, that's something different entirely.
Mm-hmm.
That requires a whole higher level. So
Absolutely.
that's what happened in Nicaragua. Like, um, our car got broken into. We got a rental car and it got broken into. So one of the last nights we were there, they were like, well, we need you to come down to the police station and file a police report.
Whoa.
Y por supuesto,
Just
necesitaba usar mi español, which I had to use Spanish, which it wasn't that good. It was kind of
man.
janky, so to
Yeah.
speak. So I made it through that, but that was my first, like, okay, you need to learn this language. So, and I felt like I did pretty well with that. So that was 2017. The next year, I was taking all these tests. I took an online speaking test for Spanish, which was like it's computer generated and computer proctored, which was very weird. It
Mm-hmm.
was super weird, and I did it online. But I did well in that test. I did well enough. And then in the summer of 2018, I actually went even a step further and earned my GED in Spanish.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that was another like, and all this time I'm thinking that I'm trying to build my resume up. I also took another test through the military. The military has a test. Well, it's not military, but it's Department of Defense. They have a test called the DLPT. It's the Defense Language Proficiency Test,
Mm-hmm.
and I have this test in every language. So I took this test in Spanish, and the highest score you can get is a 3 for reading and a 3 for listening.
Mm-hmm.
So I got that score
Whoa.
after all of my studying. So, and this is another thing that brings me to point two. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's not very popular to take tests in the language community in
Sure.
general. Like, I feel
Right.
like I hear some people that all they talk about is taking tests, but other people I don't hear a lot about tests. But
Right.
if you want to use it for professional level, like, you're gonna need to have some bona
Oh,
fides,
yeah.
if you will. That's kind of like you're gonna need to have some proof that somebody besides yourself is saying that you're good at this language.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. My buddy that lives in Japan right now, he has to take. He has no interest in taking the JLPT at all.
Yeah.
But from where he works for the government, because he works in a school, like he teaches English over there, but he's not over there with like JET or what
Yeah. Yeah.
the program. Like he literally works for the government at a school like he would in America.
Wow. Yeah.
And he has to take those tests. So yeah,
Yeah.
no, you're right. If you want to use it for, well, in Japan, if I'm not mistaken, in order for you to live over there,
Oh yeah. You got to have
you
some language proficiency.
you like, yeah, because I know that people are always like, America's so racist they don't let people in, and I'm like, you guys have never heard of Japan, have you?
You never been to? Oh my God, man! I could tell you so many stories about where, man, if you think things are bad here as far as being like, I don't know, profiled and I don't know, racism and all that stuff, man. There's some, and I traveled all around Japan when I was over there too. So I've definitely, and as somebody who's spoke the language, I've definitely had the mixed reactions,
Right.
from like the what are you doing to speak in our language to the oh we're so happy that you speak our language. So
Yeah.
it's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
But yeah, taking those tests is crucial. And then, but all this time, and I'm kind of giving you the highlights of what
Yeah.
took me to being proficient in Spanish. But all this time, I'm also watching stuff on Netflix. I watched like all of Narcos on Netflix.
Mm.
It's a fantastic show. I watched all of that in Spanish. Anytime I watched things, no no subtitles sometimes, using subtitles sometimes. I listen to a ton of podcasts in Spanish. Um,
Yeah.
what else did I do? I I wrote articles in Spanish online on my Medium account. There's some of them are still there. They're not very good, but I mean that was another way to practice.
Yeah.
So if this sounds like a lot, it's because it was. It was a lot of effort, but man, it paid off. It paid off because I actually have a card here, and I'll actually show it to you. They won't be able to see it on the podcast, but there was a Spanish-speaking student in one of my math classes when I was a student teacher at a high school, and he was from Colombia.
Hmm.
So he was the only Spanish was his first language, and he had a really hard time with math. So I would go in there and use, and my Spanish I know is no es perfecto, it's not perfect,
Right.
but it's good enough to where I could tutor this kid in Spanish. So he actually made this card for me. I don't know if you can see
Oh,
it.
whoa, it's in Japanese. Or
Yeah,
there's
he
some
put
Japanese up
Japanese
there.
because he saw that I told him that I could speak Japanese, and he wrote El poder de la matemática, and it was
Yeah.
just it was just something really cool, like
That is
I have it posted on my board here because this is why we learn languages, to
yeah.
do this stuff, and I'm not the best Spanish speaker, but it's enough for this kid to where he was like, he told me, I miss you, like yo aprecio mucho, like I appreciate what you did. I appreciate you trying to help and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's those types of moments that are like, man, that those 4 years of cutting my teeth and looking a fool in Nicaragua and going to these places, and I don't know. It
Yeah.
just made it all worth it
And
for me.
that's exactly like, to me, that's the big thing with languages, like, and I think that's what makes me so mad about a lot of Americans. They're like, well, everybody speaks English, and it's like, well, first off, that's not true. Second off, even if it was, if somebody, especially when people come to America now, and I get, there's always the argument people should learn English, but we're one of the
Yeah,
only countries in the world that we don't have a national language. It's never been assigned.
right.
But if somebody's here, it's so easy to judge someone for speaking broken English when you've never
Right.
tried to learn a language.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
if you can make them feel a little bit more at home, like I can
yeah.
remember this was in 2010 or 11, there was a Japanese steakhouse that opened up beside of where I worked. I worked at GameStop at the time, and there was a Japanese steakhouse open up beside of it. And I was pumped, right? I was like, yes, I'm gonna get to practice some Japanese. Very broken, busted Japanese. But I remember the owner came in one time, and I was just like, oh, hajimemashite, dozo yoroshiku, or and just very basic, whatever. But even though he was like, well, he was like, I moved here when I was like 10, but you could still tell it kind of hit him a certain way that like, thanks for, it's welcoming.
Yeah, thanks for trying, thanks for, making me feel a little bit more comfortable
Yeah.
here in this situation. And I got that same feeling from that kid. And um, I say that my time, trying to become a Spanish interpreter, I did actually end up becoming an interpreter. I did some freelance medical interpreting for a couple of
Shoo.
months a couple of years ago. Obviously, I didn't stick with that. I'm doing the whole teaching thing now, but um, it's definitely paid off. I mean, especially here in the U.S., I live in California, so knowing Spanish over here very
Oh yeah.
helpful, especially with kids. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't regret it at all.
I kind of, and which there's some comments here which I'll get to in just a second. So if anybody's listening, we'll get to your comments in just
Oh,
a
I actually
second.
have comments. That's nice.
But but yeah, I think that one thing I would like to see is, I would like to see, and I know that one side of the political spectrum would hate this, and I know one side would love this, but like, I really do wish that America would put a little more effort into teaching Spanish,
Oh yeah,
because you only have to take a foreign language 1 year. Well, when I graduated, you only had to take it for 1 year
yeah,
in order to graduate. And that was just any time when you were in high school, 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, you could just take foreign language one of those years and you were fine.
yeah,
But I really think that starting it earlier and making it fun,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man. It's
I agree
here.
with you.
The thing is, it's here. I don't care what you believe in terms of learn English, it's our language, whatever. I don't care what you believe in that regards. The
Right.
language is here. It's the second most used language in our country.
And only growing
Yeah.
year by year.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So why not like just take it just a little more serious?
Right. Why not? Yeah, because it's there and you can see it, you hear it everywhere, and I'm happy about that because you're seeing more content aimed at Spanish speakers. I
Mhm.
just watched Diary of a Future President on Disney Plus, and that is a totally Spanish culture is prevalent in that, and you see
Yeah.
like there's actually Spanish speaking people that are fronting these shows, that are creating
Mhm.
these shows. They're writing the scripts, and it's their culture represented. You see the same thing in the black community too, like with black shows and representation
Yeah.
and all this stuff. So it's just, I think it's an overall good thing.
Well, I think it's good. I know that this isn't really language related, but I think it's cool to see guys like Jordan Peele making movies where, well, and what I mean is, I think it's cool to see a guy like him make movies because the movies are made and it stars black people. That doesn't mean that the black person's playing the same role that they usually play. Like it's just, it's a normal movie. It just also stars black people.
Exactly, and I know exactly what you mean. It's not a black movie, as in it's not talking about black issues and black perspective that you're used to
It's,
when you see.
For lack of better terminology, and I love these guys, but it's not a Wayans brother movie.
Oh man, the Wayans, I love that.
Oh yeah, it's like
No, I feel you. It's
like
no
Don't Be a
scary
Menace
movie.
is like one of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think it's good. And see, and the thing is if you start making shows like that, especially geared towards children, my son watches Ni Hao Kai Lan.
Yeah.
And he'll run around saying ni hao, and like he'll say a couple of other words that they'll say, and he watches Dora the Explorer, and he's 3, by the way, like he's but he'll watch Dora the Explorer, and he will say some of the Spanish words, and then like, and sometimes I'll even ask him, I'll say, do you want to learn how to say this in Spanish or something, or and he'll say yeah, or like today when we were, and I love hearing him try to say it because the sounds they're even more foreign to him, but like I was trying to tell him, I said, do you want to say I drink water, because he was drinking water, and I said, do you want to say I drink water in Japanese? And he said yeah, and I said mizu o namimasu, and he was like mizu o nam, and I was like kudos for trying.
How cute.
But yeah, man, I do wish that, I don't know, I that's just something personal. I wish that they would take it serious, because I think
I'm right there with you.
Well, and
I
I think that because the biggest thing for me with languages is it introduces culture, right? Because I think a lot of issues are culture clashes that can be solved. There's some stuff you just can't understand about a culture until you can understand the way that they speak.
Absolutely.
And I honestly think that if you introduce that will help not terminate. You're never going to terminate clashes between cultures, but like I think it can ease a lot of things personally.
Definitely. When you know where somebody else is coming from, when you understand that okay, that's just a cultural aspect of their culture and their language reflects that, I can get that from the language. Mm-hmm. It's that much more valuable.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's read a couple of these comments here. Let's see, where did I leave off? What puts me off? Japanese so hard. What would worry me about Japanese are the multiple readings on kanji. That's not as bad as what it sounds like it would be. What do you like?
It's not too bad. Like once you, and this is why you got to talk about exposure. Like once you expose yourself enough to the language and see it enough times, you start to understand.
Yeah, and well, like
when the which.
Yeah, and even what I mentioned today, like the character for Ima is sometimes pronounced Kyo, and it's the way that you know that, and just to try to help you understand. And I'm not great at Japanese. That's why we're here. But Ima is now, and when you put it with this other character that means day, it means now day. If now day, if you think about it, now day today. So today is Kyo. Like you're actually putting the idea of the symbol. Like the symbols are telling you what the word means. Like it's giving you meaning. And I've tried to read stuff in Furigana, and you sometimes need those kanji to get, because there's a lot of words that are used multiple times that have multiple meanings, and the kanji is going to help you understand which one it is.
Absolutely. You want the kanji after a while.
Yeah. Let's see. I switch between learning Japanese and German. That way I don't get burnt out. I think that's perfectly fine. We talked about that earlier. Jumping from a language, I would have one that I do predominantly, and then one is just like a backup language kind of thing, but I don't know if I have any problem with that. Ahmad says, ¿Cómo es tu nivel de español hoy?
That's for me?
Yeah, I guess. My level is...
Creo que mi nivel sea alto, pero I think it's high.
Yeah.
Pero hay veces que no puedo decir que quiero decir, pero es más o menos bueno. It's pretty good.
Not bad. Rasmus, hello. Soul says experience is really good for language learning. It's good to succeed, but you also learn from failing. That's super important. I think that people, when they fail, and this is what I hate about language apps more than anything, when you get something wrong, it penalizes you. That is not good. There's a lot of stuff that you will learn by making a mistake because you have that attachment with that memory to it.
I tell you, I've failed. I mean, that scenario that I talked about in Nicaragua, like trying to get that police paperwork down, like that was a tough part. Failing when I was the kid I was telling you about that I tutored in my math class, saying stuff wrong all the time, forgetting, not conjugating verbs, that happens all the time. But what happens is the difference between a couple of months ago and a couple of years ago is that, one, I recognize the mistake. Two, it doesn't matter. I've spoken it and messed it up so many times that it doesn't matter. It's just like your native language, right? You may say something wrong, but you're just like, oh, whatever. You know, we both know it happens. So it doesn't have as much mental weight. Yeah. Because you use the language so much and you've messed it up so many times. And it takes a long time to get that far.
It does. Well, and just to put an example on how failing can help, like earlier when I said, what did I say? Something about I said I put the country I was in as Japanese.
Right.
That's just a little faux pas. Like, you mess up in your own language.
Exactly.
Like, whatever. But you knew, like, I did correct myself, but you knew what I was saying.
But you knew, right. I knew what you were saying. And that's what it comes down to, I think. It's being understood. It's not having this necessarily even a large vocabulary or sounding like this fluent Shakespearean English speaker or something like that. It's, can you understand the message that is being conveyed from the other person?
Yeah. I think Benny Lewis had a really good concept on that when he was actually talking about Spanish learning, and he was like, he said, if your goal is communication, you don't even have to conjugate the verb. If for example, if I was trying to tell you that I ate yesterday, I mean, sure, I could do it, como ayer or whatever. My accent's garbage here, but como ayer. But like the idea that I could say, no hoy or no ahora, pasado comer. I mean, like, it's weird, but like you can still get your point across.
You get it, yeah. I think that's all that matters in the end.
Yeah. So it's definitely an interesting thing. I think that's all the comments there. Keith, is there anything else that you wanna chat about, man? You got any questions or you got anything? We can chat for another minute or two, or if not, we can.
No, I just want to say I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. This is a new thing for me. Like I don't know. I feel like I'm new, even though I've been posting stuff for a while, off and on. Like I feel like I'm kind of new to the community because I haven't really engaged that much, and I'm not like super engaging all the time. But
yeah, man, you went absent for a while and had to ask where you were.
I left, but now I'm back, and I really enjoy talking with you because I don't get to talk with people like specifically about languages. Like most of my friends, they see I do the language thing. They're like, oh, you wrote this book and you're doing this podcast, but they're just not into it, and I get that, it's kind of a niche thing, but it's nice to talk to another like-minded person that like this is an important part of their life and they're going through it just like I am.
Yep. It's fun, man, and what I find extremely fun, and what really makes me love languages more is this is I think this is the 5th or 6th one that I've done in a week or a little over a week, and it's never talk about the same thing, and if you do, it's a new perspective on it, but it's not, I'm not burnt out. Like I could talk about languages every day.
That's good,
and I think it brings a lot of people together.
And I feel like you, honestly, man, I'm going to say this, like, you may think it's weird, but I feel like you have like you just have a really good voice.
I appreciate it. I don't know if, I don't know. I think that a lot of the stuff I did on my original YouTube channel maybe prepped me for, because I got, doing video, which I did some videos before, but it was from June 6th of 2016 until May, there were technically days I didn't count as episodes because like I even vlogged literally every day, even like when my wife had the baby, like and stuff.
Oh, wow.
Like I never stopped. We got robbed one time and I didn't stop. Like
Oh, wow.
so like when we lived in a different area, but you know I think that I think a lot of it has to do with being on camera every day for 650 days made me I don't lock up on a camera. And I think that's a lot of it. I think that a lot of times people sound different until they get a little bit more used to you know, to being on a camera. Like, and I know it's weird because like, which there's been up to, I think 11 or 12 people watching at the same time. There's 5 right now, but like, you know, over the course of the life of this video, it's probably, yeah, I mean, anywhere upwards of 100 or a little bit more. Most of these are getting between, it seems like around between 70 and 100. So, but I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, like getting used to that definitely helped. And I think that that's I don't know. I think that that's that can do. There's a couple more things that came through, but I do think that helped me get to the point to where I can do stuff and chat with people in whatever. So, how many this is a good question actually. How many languages can one become proficient in? Is there a limit?
Oh, they're asking you or me?
I guess just either one of us. I think.
So how many? What?
Yeah, it says how many languages can one become proficient in, and is there a limit? I think I can take. I think you can become proficient in as many languages as you want. I do think there's a limit because once you get it out of your head that you're not going to be proficient in 3 months, there's only so much time that you're alive. And so I think that understanding that proficiency is not months, we're talking years. In terms of like professional proficiency, there's only so much you can do.
Exactly, and I hope that I've driven that point home from, like, if they've listened to this whole episode, to get to a professional level or even like a proficient level to where you can just spontaneously produce the language. We're not even talking about being able to read it or write it. You just want to speak.
Yeah.
That takes a year minimum, and that's if you're like in the right conditions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have somebody, a reliable person to speak with. You're doing it every day. You're actually focusing in on what you want to focus in on every day. Because as you know, you may watch an episode of Erased, but if you're not in the right mindset, you're just going to end up watching Erased.
Yeah.
You're not going to end up studying Japanese. And that happened to me so many times with Spanish. I would watch una telenovela and I would just get into the story. Oh, what did I learn in Spanish? Nothing.
Yeah.
Waste of an hour. So those types of things happen throughout the way. And you have to be realistic that every time you study or intend to study the language, you're not going to be getting 100% out of that every time. This is not realistic.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I fall, even in the week that I've been doing this, I've fallen into the trap of where I watch something and I have to step back and say, okay, even though this is for fun and I am having fun, I need to make sure that I'm concentrating a little bit more. Right. Because the idea is picking up on patterns in speech and stuff like that. So I've definitely had to catch myself because it's easy to not do that. So
yeah,
cool.
Okay, so my wife's coming in here and I smell dinner cooking downstairs.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we'll let that go, man. I'm going to end the stream. Thanks everybody for joining. Keith, maybe a little bit down the road we can get back on here, man.
Well, I would love to.
Always enjoy chatting. So thanks everybody for. I left a link to Keith's website where he does like a blog and a podcast and stuff. It's in the description. You can check that out. Go check that out. And I will catch everybody in the next stream. Thanks everybody for watching.